Greetings. This is your Pan-African show called Afreeqa with your host Katsalark Seifu. We have a great guest for you today. Thank you for coming to our studio.
Thank you for having me.
If you could please introduce yourself.
My name is Saba and Frash. I live in Ethiopia now. I've been here for 3 years. Originally, I lived in America for about 30 years.
A lot of people don't know who Saba and Frash is. So let's go back. I'm going to take you back to your childhood.
Right.
And if you could tell us how growing up was. And I know you left Ethiopia at a very young age.
Right.
If you could tell us that experience.
Okay. I was born in Nazareth, and I lived in Merti for about 5 years with my aunt, and then moved to Mojo. So I lived in Mojo for about 3 more years. And then when I was 8 years old, I moved to the States. So in the States, it was my dad and my stepmom that raised me until about the age of 12 I was there. And then I think there was always something that connected me to Ethiopia. So at 12, my family sent me here. And then my mom lived here in Mojo. So I moved right back to Mojo. Originally, I came for about a year, but ended up staying for 3 because I loved it so much. I just loved that organic life.
So you went back to high school. You were in high school at that point when you came back.
When I came, I was 12, so middle school.
Middle school.
Right.
Okay.
Actually, the plan was to put me in boarding school. I was like, no. I like the idea of just being with people, you know, and just that organic life. Mojo was different. It's not the comfort you would expect or the comfort I'm used to. But you adjust when you love something, right?
Exactly.
So I stayed for about 2 years in Mojo and then a year in Nazareth, and I moved back to the States.
So how old were you when you moved back?
When I moved back to the States? 15.
So from 12 to 15, you were here. And then from 8 to 12, you were there.
Yes.
So the reason why I'm going back and forth is because I want you to describe to us the difference. Mm-hmm. 1, in education.
Right.
2, in community.
Right.
How it was for you originally when you went from Ethiopia to the States. That first feeling that you had.
You're taking me back.
Yeah. It'd be interesting because you were 8.
Right. Absolutely.
You know what I mean? Yeah. So if you could tell us a little about that.
Sure. So I went to North Carolina when I first went there. America is not what you think it is today. So much more different than, especially in North Carolina, in the South, in the country, nobody knows anything about Ethiopia. So it was very difficult adjusting at first. I went straight into elementary school by, you know, as a kid, you adjust fast. So by about 3 months, I was speaking fluent English. I was very well adjusted in, you know, elementary school. The only thing at that time that really, really was challenging was the fact that kids are cruel in a sense sometimes. They say what's on their mind. So there's a lot of that, you know, being made fun of because you're from Africa, you know, not knowing what Africa is, it's easier for them to make fun of you. So I dealt with a lot of the, you know, little name calling that a lot of Africans had to experience, which is go back to your country, you know, African here, scratcher, you know. So, you know, it was a little challenging at first, but as a kid, you adjust.
It was easier.
It was easier as a kid, adjusting there, because I was a kid. But now coming back at 12 here and adjusting to Ethiopia, people are welcoming. It's harder to adjust here, which is comfort level, you know, the type of life you're living, more so when you see it economically. It's different. But you know what covers all of that and what makes it so great is the people. You know, especially at that time, if somebody knew you came from America, or they can, you know, see you and tell you came from America, like, you're treated different. Everybody's excited to have you here. And so when I first came, that was just what drew me and what kept me here.
Yeah, kept you here.
The people, really. You know, you forget about the other comforts when you see the people.
So 15 came and you went back to the States.
Yep.
Did you go back to North Carolina?
At this point, my family was in Seattle. So I moved back to Seattle. We had moved to Seattle before.
Before, okay.
Yeah, me moving back to Ethiopia.
Okay, so now Saba knows a little bit more of Ethiopia.
Yes.
Of her culture, of her country.
Learned Amharic.
Exactly, and you're more African
I'm
at this
African
point.
Yes.
So when you go back at 15 to Seattle, how was that adjustment? Or did you even meet?
There was adjustment, actually. Still, you know, that sense of belonging is here. Yeah. Really, there was something, even though I went to America at a young age, I adjusted well. I'd say in a lot of ways I'm more American than Ethiopian, meaning, you know, an everyday life kind of thing, you know. But at heart, I'm Ethiopian. So going back and adjusting was another, and it's high school. I'm 15, starting in 9th grade. And that by itself is challenging as it is, let alone going from another country, readjusting again, all over again. It was quite a challenge. But, you know, in everything that you do, you find that safe space in people. So I found my little immigrant friends and, you know, we made our little circle. And what was hard adjusting there is that I remember, you know, there are certain things that you just take you back because there's so much innocence here in Ethiopia. There is just, growing up, we didn't know a lot of things. We weren't exposed to a lot of things. I went back at 15 and the things I saw, you know, you see kids doing drugs, you see this, you know, really I was opened up, honestly, to the real world then. I had to make choices that a young adult had to make to get where I'm at today. But yeah, you know, there was a lot of exposure to different things. But again, we're human and I adjusted.
Right. And you made it through. Here you are.
Yeah, right.
Okay, so you finished high school. So what did you decide to become, to do once you finished high school?
I mean, there was a lot of challenges in life which we're not really going to get into. But I never really discovered from heart at that time what I wanted to do. I was just led on the path of, okay, you have to go to college. So at that point, I had already moved to Minnesota, you know, started life really just on my own, away from family. I started, you know, going to school, working, just taking care of myself. I have family here. At that age, you know, you wouldn't think anybody would have to take care of family, but I loved doing it. And they never asked, but I loved doing it. So at that point, I started really learning what responsibility was, really looking back to here also. My heart has always been here. So at that point, I was worried about finishing college and trying to figure out how to come back to Ethiopia. But my mom and, you know, my brothers and stuff that are here are like, are you crazy? First take us and then you can move. Like, you can move here. So yeah, it was Minnesota. And then after Minnesota, it's funny, I moved around a lot. So I went back to North Carolina and then ended up finally in Virginia. And that's really when I started life, got married, had kids, and like went on. Yeah.
Oh, no, we want to hear about that too.
Absolutely.
Yeah, because, you know, you went to North Carolina and then you went to D.C. You moved to D.C.
I moved to the D.C. area. You know, my home base is always North Carolina. That's where I land. I mean, it's home away from home. That's my second home.
So you still have family in North Carolina?
I do. Okay. I do. On my dad's side, I do have family still there. But what made me move to the DC area, I'm not still, you know, the funny thing is, I think it's just looking for more Habesha people around me. Because I was raised really around Americans when I was in America. So at this age, nobody told me where I could live. So I was like, you know what? It's time to be where the Ethiopians are. So that's what made me move to the DC area. But, you know, this life has its own plans and that's where I met my husband.
So now we can get into how you met your husband and how you ended up getting married and having kids.
It's funny how I met him. So I moved to DC, right? I needed a place to rent. And he had a place to rent.
Wow.
So a friend of mine, I met him through a friend of mine, really is just as roommates. He had a house and a room in a house. And, you know, we were young at that time. So there were different people renting rooms. Yeah, it's DC and we're young. So, you know, we need a room, not a whole place. And that's how we met. So I rented a room in this place and one thing led to another. We're here.
Wow. That's beautiful. Yeah. How many kids do you have?
I have 3 now. And
how old?
Almost a 14-year-old, 11-year-old, and a 7-month-old. Yeah.
After you got married, you had your both kids in DC.
In DC,
yeah. And then you guys decided to move to Ethiopia. So I would like to know what made you decide to move back home.
Okay.
And then once you came home. And then the other thing that we cannot forget to mention is the fact that you homeschooled. your children.
My kids, yeah, at one point I did.
Exactly. So that's also a very interesting conversation.
Okay.
Because we all have issues on education. So if you could also touch on that.
What made me and my husband really connect, on top of many things, is the fact that he always wanted to move back to Ethiopia as well. And I told you earlier, my heart was always here and set here. So that's one thing we discussed even early on, that one day we will move back, like we will raise our kids here. So I think around when my daughter was about 2-3 years old, if I'm not mistaken, 2013, we ended up moving here. All together, he came first, set up some things. Really didn't even know like exactly what business we were going to get into or whatever. We just kind of on a whim just came, and one thing led to another. Started a business. 2013, my daughter went to Greek school. She's actually in America. She started school early as well. So she started going to school for about a year. We stayed. It was a little difficult with kids. So I left with the kids back to the States, just to get some things more set up here so my husband can, set ground, and so we can come back and be more comfortable, So we went back. He did what he did. I mean, he first did a namag as an embroidery company. And then it went on, and it became something else, which we'll talk about later. And then that's how he set up everything, and we came back here, I think, around COVID, and that's when I started homeschooling my kids, because there was a lot around it. You couldn't, send them to school. They did a lot of online with the school. So I did a little bit of research and thought, you know what? This is the perfect time to homeschool them in Ethiopia. So we got a place that was just huge, like a compound, and we planted trees or, right in the house, and they found a great homeschooling company and got a tutor for them, and it was really nice, actually, for about 2 years. Yeah.
When you homeschool your children in Ethiopia, do the Ethiopian government actually accept homeschooling?
I didn't have to get into that, and I'm not sure, because now they go to school here, that. So obviously they did accept the curriculum and how far they went. But it's a well-accredited school. It's a school that's based in the United States, a homeschool based in the United States. They just physically happen to be here. Yeah.
And homeschooling is good for children?
It's hard, I'm not going to lie, but it's a beautiful experience, to tell you honestly, because you're in the world we're in today, like we barely see our kids. It's work all day, and they're at school all day. You come home, you cook, you have an hour together, and they go to sleep. And then it's rinse and repeat, right? That's what I love Ethiopia for. Life is a little bit slower. You always have help. I'm constantly with them, and more than anything in life, I just always want to be there for my kids. I think that's my biggest calling. So it slowed life down. It really did. And it's just such a beautiful experience. It may be hard, but what isn't? Everything.
Right.
So, yeah.
Yeah, because I've met a few homeschool children, and everything about them is different than students that actually go to school. Yeah. Even the way they think and communicate is so different.
One big thing I saw is just the sense of identities on themselves. Like there's not a lot of peer pressure around them. When you take them even to activities outside of the house, they're around, of course, they need that social connection and that social life, but they're around kids for that limited amount of time. They're around you most of the time. And I feel like it should be that way. You should be more around your family, your cousins. They're around their cousins a lot more, their aunts, uncles, They have a lot of support. It's not like they were in homeschool and sitting at home and doing nothing. They had family.
It's different. Homeschooling in Ethiopia and homeschooling in the States it's just very different.
It's very lonely there, I'm sure.
Absolutely.
Right? Yeah.
And that's the beauty of, and I think that's one of the things that made most of us move back home.
Yeah.
Is that sense of community and having your entire family all around you all the time.
Yeah. Yeah.
For some people it's too much, but for most of us, it's a beautiful thing.
Exactly. And it depends on who you are. I've always loved family. I've always wanted a big family and wanted to live that communal life, So, yeah.
So we both had a reason to come back home.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Great. So let's get back to Dirnamag. Yeah. So after the embroidery, you guys got into the cafe business.
Yeah.
Or how did the...
That's a funny story, actually. There was a store in Bole that just solely took orders for the embroidery. It was just a spot to take orders, and then it went and got done at the factory. But while people were waiting, my husband is very creative. He had this idea. He was like, why don't just sell coffee while we're at it? And anything he does is he's just meticulous. So he's very good at it, whatever he does. He got into the coffee. I'm telling you, I won't drink any other coffee than his. It's the most amazing coffee I tasted. Of course, he buys different coffees, right?
Yeah.
But just the way process of tasting it, what is it? How is it made? There is a certain formula for it. And when he tastes it, if it's the formula's changed just quite even a bit, he knows it. You know what I mean? So he started the cafe, and that's going well. And then at one point, it was just a conversation. He just had an idea pop, and he was like, we have, drinks that are beautiful in this country, which is Arake, right? He's like, we could really, purify it and distill it well to a point where when you consume it, it's a lot more easier to consume, nicer, right? That burn that you have, when people think about Arake, the first expression they have is like, ugh.
Yeah, it's hard coming down.
Exactly. And that's our biggest challenge, marketing, right? For us. But he changed that to where it really cleaning it, distilling it and filtering it to a point where it doesn't have those harmful contents in it. And of course, when you drink it, it's nicer, goes down better. So it was just a thought that popped up into his head one day, and he was like, let me try it. Why not? So we just started trying it at home. Different flavorings. I mean, we went through so many flavors and then came down to which ones we wanted to do. That's how it started, and now it's turning into something big.
So I'm going to actually take you back a little bit.
Okay.
Because I think it would be nice to know how he came up with the name. I love the name.
Dirnamag?
Oh, I love the name.
When you really think about it, people say it doesn't go with Arake, right? Dirnamag. So Dirnamag is like the horizontal and the vertical line in cloth weaving, right? Weaving. So embroidery, that just went with that. That's how the idea just popped in his head. I don't know, but that's how it started. And then we thought, people already know the name. We love the name, and we just kind of continued with that. So many people asked us to change the name, but we were like, no, we're sticking.
When you came to the drink?
When we came to the drink, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, I see what you mean.
Yeah.
Arake. It's one of my favorite drinks. And one of the best part of the timing of your drink, which is a good thing, is because I know as a country we had stopped importing certain drinks, liquor. So in a way, this is a good way of introducing locally made drinks.
Yep.
Because I think we lack on that. Even though we have some of the best local drinks, we don't know how to market them very well.
Right.
So this is a beautiful way of actually packaging and marketing one of our own great drinks.
Exactly.
So I have to say congratulations.
Thank you.
So now, when you decided to make certain flavored arake, what did you decide to do? Because I know you said you tried different flavors and then narrowed it to a few.
So originally we tried many of them. It didn't go to market, but we tried different fruits like mango, banana. Tamar was really popular, actually. We're not doing tamar anymore. Right now we still do, there's the coffee, honey, garlic, lomi, and tea spices. We have 5 flavors, and then we have 4 that are originals without any flavoring.
Okay.
So the 4 originals are dagusa, goje, gibto, and koso. So koso, is very medicinal as well, traditionally.
What do people like the most?
The most, the coffee and honey. And it depends who you ask on, honestly. But the one that goes flavor-wise, the 2 popular ones are the coffee and the honey. Honey especially.
In arake, I know the earlier one, the ones that are not flavored, you did say had a medicinal elements, right? Medicinal in a sense where, for example, if you eat raw meat, right?
Yeah.
So do the flavor ones have any of those advantages also or no?
So really the medicinal one is the koso traditionally that we know of. Yeah, koso, it's for stomach parasites, would it be, or helps with digestion after you eat, like you said, something heavy like raw meat. But yeah, that's the koso is the only medicinal one.
So on our table, we have quite a few things.
Yeah.
I think we should
Talk
about them.
Sure. Basically, all of them, it's what arake is made of.
Okay.
Maybe we're not telling you all the ingredients, but the main parts of the ingredient, right? So that one, the four right there, there's corn, there's barley, there's geisho, and sinde. And those four makes the goji. And we have koso here. And then remember, we have also gubto and then koso. So these are what makes the other ones. This one would be for gubto. This is the one it's made of.
Okay.
Right here would be koso, and this would be dagusa.
Okay.
So these are the grains that the arake is made of. Okay. So originally, before it's flavored, it's made out of these ingredients. And then later on, it gets flavored.
So what makes your arake different than everybody else's?
With arake, it's number one concern in Ethiopia is the cleanliness. Where is it made? Cleanliness, meaning what is it made of? So what's in there? Are there any harmful ingredients in there to make it a lot more stronger? With us, what makes it different is, number one, it's made of all clean products. Two, we measure the alcohol content. So you know what you're consuming alcohol content-wise. It's double distilled, and it's also filtered. So what that does is it gets rid of any impurities, any harmful, agents left
in there,
left behind. Yeah. And that's it. It's just really scientifically done. We really thought about it. It's, there's knowledge behind it. And big thing is consistency. There is consistency in it. You know what you're putting in your body.
A lot of the drinks in Ethiopia don't have alcohol levels.
Yeah.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Especially like the arakes.
Right. It's not even properly bottled, which is another challenge in itself.
So what is the alcohol content or level or percentage?
Percentage. So the flavored ones go anywhere from 20 to 35%. The non-flavored ones up to 45%. So each one is labeled on the bottle.
So here you are with Duranamag Arake. Now what's the next plan? Because you guys are always surprising us with new things. So just in case there's something new coming out, brewing behind closed doors.
So my husband is really good at that one. And until after it brews, he usually doesn't say anything. Me, more as a passion, I make, body butters, soaps, lotions, and stuff like that. So as a hobby, as a passion, I do that. And, that turns into something. The beauty of it. Yeah, absolutely. So soon coming.
So tell us about that.
Sure. I love taking care of myself in a way that is much natural, more grounded, earthly kind of person. So over time, I studied that all of our products contain some sort of chemical, whether it's preservatives, whether it's lightening creams, and so on and so forth, parabens, and I can go on. So I decided, my biggest thing was I put these things on my kids. So I decided to come back to Africa. Like, we have the best products here. Like, we literally take it from here and sell it there. So it's funny, my first batch, I bought it from there and came here. It's so funny. So I make body butters that are all natural, made of shea butter. So it doesn't have harmful effects that other products have. And as a preservative, I even use all natural preservative, plant-based preservative. So it doesn't, go bad on your shelf. Other than that, I make black soap. And with black soap, it's harder to use as a bar. So I make liquid black soap. I add ingredients to it because it has more of a drying effect on your skin. So I add different types of oils, sometimes aloe vera, depending on the skin type. And I also make hair oils that actually make your hair grow with herbs.
Wow. What kind of herbs? Or is that a secret?
No, absolutely not. Absolutely not.
I'm trying to get your recipe here. Can you tell?
Okay. It's something you do, you know, when taking care of yourself, it's a lifestyle, something you do every day. So it's even, you know, going back to our culture, kibe makala, you know, putting kibe on your hair, butter, flaxseed. You know, we used to do that when we were young. And then the more products we started seeing, we thought it was cooler to be on this side of, you know, the table. So I just want to bring back that, you know, organic, healthy way of living. So it's basically everyday herbs that you use in your house, anywhere from rosemary to parsley to flaxseed, aloe vera. I grew up, you're plant lover. I actually got my aloe vera from you. I use fenugreek, black seed. So all of these things, actually different herbs put together in hair oils that are actually like grapeseed oil, for example. It's beautiful oil. I heat them up in there together and put my natural preservative in there, and there you go, root stimulator.
You always worry about mixing certain things and not knowing what outcome would be. Exactly, the effect.
Any natural herbs or anything like that, they're not chemicals. Chemicals are the ones that have reactions, right? So I have never yet have to experience allergies or any harmful, you know, reaction to it. The one thing that I see usually that has, you know, the most allergy in people is tea tree so far that I've discovered.
Really?
Yeah. So some people can harshly be allergic to it. And so just like with anything, before you use it, spot test. Just put it in a certain spot, see if you have an allergic reaction. You know, that way you can avoid any
reaction.
Yeah.
Okay.
Harmful reactions.
Beautiful. Beautiful. One of the reasons why I really, truly wanted to talk to you was because you lived abroad and decided to move back home.
Right.
So you're like a returnee coming back home. I want to know, even though I understand with the conversation that we had, the reason why you came home,
right,
and all of that. But if there were other Ethiopians or other Africans that are living abroad, what would be the one thing that you would, you know, tell people when coming back home, or why they should come back home in your own way?
I don't know if there is that one thing, but if I can say the one thing is listen to yourself. Really, if it's in your heart to be here, there's a lot of fear behind moving. I think that's the biggest thing I see in people. There's a lot of fear behind it. But you know what? With a little bit of planning, put the fear aside and just take a chance. Follow your heart. That's the biggest thing I can say, honestly. Yeah,
that's well said. Thank you very much for coming to our studio and having this conversation with us.
Thank you for having me.
And I'm assuming the products are sold in stores?
Yes, so we do have a store around Chechnya by Yilmaz Siga, like down the street from Yilmaz Siga. That's the only store we have right now, but actually we have it in stores also. Safeway Supermarket is one of them. I know at Capital Hotel at the restaurant, they do serve it there as well. And then the mall, which is a delivery service. And also, if you call us, we deliver as well. And we're looking to expand to more stores. So as it goes, you'll know, and follow us on Instagram and you'll find all our products there.
Beautiful. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Thank you very much for tuning in. This is your Pan-African show called Afreeqa with your host, Seifu. Thank you again.